Welcome, I'm Ann Denton, and I'm back again with our next installment of our wonderful books by Ann Hazelwood for the Love of Quilts. And if you haven't gotten your books from AQS, it's never too late to go ahead and order the books so you continue on with the series. Quilt City, Paducah, Kentucky, USA is booming with all sorts of quilt shops. So when you do come to Paducah for the next quilt show, hopefully it will be in September, be sure and look at those shops for your quilts. You'll see behind me another red and white quilt. This is an Irish chain quilt, double Irish chain, and it was made by Linda Baxter Lasco from New London, New Hampshire, and quilted by Judy Woodworth of Gering, Nebraska. They have done wonderful works with these red and white quilts. I know you'll enjoy seeing them, and Ann Hazelwood's very favorite quilts are red and white quilts. In reviewing the pages that we have just gone over, we know that Ann's landlord, Bertie, died, and her distant brother to Bertie came into town and said they had not been close. He had had the body cremated and didn't know if they should have some sort of a memorial service, which shocked Lily because she felt that Bertie had so many friends in the neighborhood, and at St. Ambrose Church they surely would want to have a memorial service. So they finally decide, the brother does, that he will have the service. And she talks with her friend Alex, and she talks with her sister Lynn about her situation. Alex is always her listening ear and her best friend. They may share a lot of commonalities from being in the editing world, and he always is there when she really needs a friend. I don't think there's ever been a romantic interest between the two, but he's sort of like a brother that she can really trust. He never seems to feel threatened by the presence of Mark, but he is always there to help her in any situation. In going back and forth between Augusta and the Hill, Lily would stop at different places, and she stopped and met a man who just came up to her in a restaurant as she was having coffee and made some small comments to her, and find out that this man is a painter. And he is just very friendly, very forward, but Lily is taken with his forwardness, but in talking she finds out that he's a painter. But she doesn't really understand the extent of his painter, but she said that she probably would need a sign for the shop that she was going to have. So they talk back and forth, and then she sees him again in another coffee shop. Then she sees him in a restaurant, but he's with another woman, so she doesn't know that if he's interested in her or if he's just a very friendly man. He finally finishes the sign that she has asked for him to do for pay and brings it to the shop. Her sister Lynn is there, and they realize that they both have some common interest being in the art world, and so they can continue talking, and they have a very good rapport. It's very interesting when you think about Nick just showing up at this stage of Lily's life, and he's certainly not just a sign man, but he's very renowned in the art world. When Lily is back at the yellow house, she finds more strange things are happening. The objects are being moved around, lights are flashing off and on. One night during the storm, the power goes out, and she goes downstairs to find candles and matches and sees a lamp in one of the rooms on and glowing, and it's not plugged in. What in the world could that mean? If you have ever had a ghost or something that happened to you that you couldn't quite explain in your life, share your thoughts with us. That's an interesting situation. Also, Lily finds out from Lynn that the niece, Sarah, is pregnant. She doesn't want to get married, and she's not sure that the father was the person her mother wanted her to marry. Stay tuned for what's going to happen with Sarah. In the story, Holly comes to the yellow shop, in Augusta, and she brings a wonderful prize present for Lily. She has needlepointed an open and closed sign to put on the door of the shop. Lily is so excited about that. It's just the absolute perfect thing that she has. And the shop has all sorts of different materials in it, lots of linens, and some needlepoint pieces. I used to needlepoint a lot. I've done Christmas stockings and bell pulls and pillows and all sorts of things, even a favorite one that I did of some cardinals. And I'll share those pictures with you. The information came back about the splashers, and the splashers were very ornate, wonderful hand towels. They were usually hung on a rack over a pitcher and bowl and were used to dry your hands, not white, dirty hands, but to dry, clean hands, and they kept the splash from the bowl onto the tabletop. So they were called splashers. And if you go online or go to eBay, you'll see a couple of those. They were very interesting. I think I even have a couple that I probably bought in Ireland, but mine had more family names or names of towns worked into them. But look those up. Those were very interesting. In thinking about the death of Bertie, Lily was very touched. She had been a friend of Bertie's, and Bertie had never even made her sign a lease, which would tell you what a friendship that they had. But Bertie was a little intrusive. She always wanted to know what Lily was doing and where she was going, and that's not a good thing. When my husband and I were first married, he had just finished a tour in Korea after graduating from Murray State University and was going to finish up 13 months at the Lexington Bluegrass Army Depot in Lexington, Kentucky, and then enter law school at the University of Kentucky. We didn't really have any furniture, and we looked and looked for an apartment before we got to Lexington, and we found an apartment furnished upstairs in a famous photographer, Adam Pepio's home. It had an outside entrance to it. It had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a kitchen, and sort of a sitting area. And one bedroom we could never go in. I think she was going to use that for company. But anyway, it was a beautiful, beautiful apartment and in a wonderful neighborhood. Well, the problem is that I started taking classes at the University of Kentucky, and I was working as a purchasing agent at the Lexington Bluegrass Army Depot during the Vietnam War, and I would come home from work, and the landlady had put some meat out to thaw that I could fix for dinner, or she would go through the refrigerator to see if I had items for salad. That is not exactly what a newlywed wants a landlord to do. And we didn't stay there very long. We moved, got a few pieces of furniture, and did not have a landlord checking in on us daily. You probably have had similar stories, or at least heard some stories about the obtrusive landlord. Sometimes you will see me looking out to my left out my window, and I have a beautiful view and lots of birds, and they constantly are pecking on the window, so I'm always looking to see what's going on. Now we're going to have our drawing. I'm so excited that some of you all sent in some items for your favorite recipes, and we're so excited that this person is going to receive a copy of Ann Hazelwood's book, autographed. So let's have a drawing for one of the salads. All right. Carol Martin's Easy Salad. Congratulations, Carol. We'll be getting the information and sending the book autographed to you. Next week, we're going to have another drawing. We're going to have a drawing for another one of Ann's autographed books, and she's including one of her bookmarks that she has specially made for this book. So be sure and send in your ideas. And the contest is, there are wonderful places on the hill in St. Louis, the bakeries, the grocery, St. Ambrose Church, the restaurants, Viviano's Grocery, wonderful restaurants and places to visit in the hill country. If you have ever visited any of those places, send in your name with one that you visited. If you have not been to those places, Send in your name with some place that you would like to go that you've been reading about. And those items, one will be drawn out next week for another one of Ann's books with her new bookmark, and Ann will be joining us next week. So be sure and tune in next week. In the questions that were sent to Ann Hazelwood, here are her questions and answers. 1, I'm very curious about the little yellow house. Can you tell us more about the little yellow house? And she said actually she was able to tour the little yellow house and it was in terrible disrepair, but in her mind she could see all the possibilities for that shop. I saw the potential for an antique shop, and because I was a retailer for over 30 years, I envisioned all the things that I could do to make that little yellow house a wonderful quilt shop and antique store. And the second question asked was, have you ever encountered a ghost like Rosie in your book? Ann said, actually in Augusta, there were many Main Street shop owners who had ghost stories. In Ann's conversation about ghosts, she had a little 6-year-old girl in her shop in Augusta. She had a button shop, and the little girl would move buttons around in the shop occasionally. Ann will answer your questions, so be sure and send them in for her to answer to you next Thursday. She won't be live, but she will have your questions and she will answer them for you on this video. One of Ann's questions was, Ann, what was your inspiration for Lily's close friend Alex? And Ann answers, your best friend doesn't always have to be a girl. I love talking to men, especially in business. I've had many male friends in the historic little town. It was refreshing for me since I was around women all day long in my shop. Men tend to be straight shooters, whether you like it or not, and I certainly like that in a friend. Don't forget, if you're enjoying this video and these talks, to hit the like and the share button at the bottom and to send in any questions that you will have for Ann to answer next Thursday. Ann Denton, Paducah, Kentucky, Quilt City, USA.